everyone, and welcome back to the MTG Goldfish Podcast, episode 136, your weekly podcast covering everything Magic the Gathering related. Your host, as always, Chaz, content producer and focusing on the financial aspect of the game, joined by Richard, the owner of MTG Goldfish. What's up, Richard?
Hey guys, what's going on? Happy Eclipse Day.
Happy Eclipse Day, Richard. And Seth is back. Welcome back, Seth. How was your vacation?
It was very nice, but I'm glad to be back. It's weird. I like vacation, but it takes a lot to not think about Magic and check up on Magic stuff. So I actually have to keep myself from doing that stuff during vacation.
Nice. So that is Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, in case any of you didn't know. All-around content creator. And you can find us every week on Google Play, iTunes, mtggoldfish.com, and now on YouTube. So, Seth, well, on the docket today, it looks like you didn't miss too much. So we are going to discuss the latest GP, so GP Denver, and congrats to Brad Nelson for winning the tournament. Just going to briefly talk about Standard and its health and where we might be going, because right around the corner is Ixalan, and we're all really excited about that. We have Hascon coming up, so we're going to discuss that a little bit, and a bunch of market movement, a lot of market movement, I'll say, and it's too much to ignore. A lot about the reserve list this time around, and seems to be a yearly thing, so we're going to discuss that as well. So let's get going. GP Denver is in the books, and what did you folks, or, gentlemen, what did you think? Richard, did you get to catch any of it? Seth, I know you were kind of not trying to think too much about Magic, but it looks like Standard is in a pretty healthy spot.
Yeah, Brad Nelson. Congrats to Brad Nelson. Took down the tournament with Teamer Energy. I did not watch the tournament outside of my 5-minute check that the deck displays were working correctly because they were using the Goldfish deck displays. But Standard seems to be in a good place. It's rock, paper, scissors, right? We have our archetypes from the Pro Tour, I guess, still going strong, and just every week there's a different deck winning, and I guess this is a healthy meta? I don't know. We don't see any spice, but we do see different decks winning, and they're still all here, so this is, I think, the balanced meta, right?
Yeah, I mean, I got to watch a little bit of it on Sunday, and Standard looks pretty good. I think I tweeted, it's pretty amazing how bad Standard was not long ago and how good it is now. It's quite the recovery for Standard. I'm a little nervous because we're actually getting super close to rotation. I mean, we've been focused on Commander and the summer stuff, but we're like a month away from rotation. So even though Standard's very good right now, it'll be interesting to see what things look like in a few months, because some of the big decks from the rock, paper, scissors are probably going to drop off. Like Zombies is a big one. Not sure that that'll still be a thing without a lot of its key pieces. We lose all the Eldrazi, which are kind of the key part of the ramp decks. So while I think things are sweet now, I'm also excited to see what things look like a month from now.
Yeah, it really is very close to rotation, so it's about that time again. And we're losing a lot of cards and not replacing them with very many. I think people have kind of just been accustomed to Shadows block and BFZ block being part of Standard for so long. I mean, I think it's funny because some people still don't realize that Shadows is also rotating. It is indeed rotating, and we're losing about 900 and change cards and replacing them with 240?
Yeah.
So it's a pretty huge rotation, and you're absolutely right, Seth. I mean, some of the decks will drop off, but a couple of the key decks right now, anyway, don't lose very much. I think Energy maybe loses maybe a few cards. That's it. And Ramanap Red doesn't lose very much either. So it's going to be interesting, and with a condensed meta, I think we'll just continue to see aggressive decks continue to be popular until some mid-range decks form again, because I do think some of the cards have been overshadowed right now will start to rear their head again. A lot of the Gear Hulks, probably some of the gods that haven't been played, notably like the Scarab God, which did see some play over the weekend, so there is optimism.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because we're going from Standard at maximum size with 8 sets in it to Standard with 5 sets in it, so it is a really big shakeup. I think my main concern is just how good energy will be, because like you said, those decks lose basically nothing, like maybe a tireless tracker or two, and that's the only thing they lose out of their entire main deck. So I'm curious to see if we're going to run into a time where it's just all energy decks, or if Ixalan will have enough power to be able to keep up. I think the big takeaway from the GP outside of the top 8 was the God Pharaoh's gift decks are still around. There was a whole bunch of them that just barely missed the top 8. So with a little bit more luck in the last rounds, we could have had 2 or 3 God Pharaoh's gift decks in the top 8. So it's interesting to see the development of that archetype. The biggest ones of the weekend were Jeskai instead of straight blue-white, which a lot of the earlier builds were. So it's cool that there is innovation going on. It just didn't quite make it to the top 8 this weekend.
Yeah, it's rock, paper, scissors because, Brad Nelson's winning list only played 2 Abrades, right? So people are like, yeah, no one's crazy enough to play Monument now with all these Abrades running around. So they start cutting their Abrades. And then, the big scary artifacts kind of rear their head back in. So I like how that is. There are enough answers here that people can keep decks down, and then they start getting greedy and start cutting the answers, and then those decks crop back up, kind of like Dredge in older formats. So that's a pretty interesting dynamic.
Yeah, that's historically a sign of a healthy metagame. Richard, you played the game a long time. Seth, you played the game a long time. So it's good to see, and definitely the chatter is confirming this, that it's almost like a weekly meta. And just like you said, Richard, we're starting to see that when you cut Abrades, then, the Monument decks begin to come out in more numbers, and then once people put a Braid back in, then it switches to more aggressive lists, and then if Red's doing well, Zombies is a good counter to that. So it's always kind of rotating, and at least we get that for at least a little bit more, a few more weeks before rotation just kind of puts a monkey wrench in all that.
I think, when was the last time you remember a format that was a month away from rotation and this wide open? Like, if I think back to last rotations, for the last 2 or 3 years even, I remember a couple years ago literally not watching tournaments over the summer because Collected Company was... everyone knew it was the deck. Like, there wasn't even really any reason to watch because you knew that Collected Company was the best deck. You're just waiting for rotation. So it's actually really refreshing to be so close to rotation and still have a pretty healthy metagame. Like, maybe we don't see a ton of brand new decks popping up, but like you said, there's a lot of back and forth and up and down, and different decks are doing well on different weeks. And it hasn't been like this deep into a format for at least a couple of years, and maybe longer than that.
I feel like I want to say at some point when Innistrad was legal, the first Innistrad, but because there was already there was a ton of archetypes. I don't know. I think towards the very end it did get a little sketchy with a lot of the Naya humans lists, and it kind of took over the format. But right up until then, it did go pretty deep where there was a lot of different archetypes. I do remember that, but yeah, I think. A part of that, though, is kind of we had to wait for all these bannings, which was kind of unfortunate. But just imagine how great this would have been the last year if those cards were not printed at all. I think it's pretty interesting to think about that. But at the very least, we had at least a short time where Standard's really awesome to kind of send off BFZ and Shadows Block this way. All right. With that being said, do you want to move into Hascon?
Yes, Hascon. So Hascon is 3 weeks, right? 3 weeks?
3 weeks,
today. So September, the weekend of September 8th. And last week, Hascon tickets were put on Groupon at anywhere from, I guess, 33% to 50% off.
That sounds right.
That is not good, right? When you show up on Groupon, that means no one is buying your tickets. They need to liquidate them fast and get people to buy them. So right now you can buy single day tickets for Hascon for $20 to $30 or $35 on Groupon. What do you guys make of this? We're 3 weeks out and they've hit the panic button. They're on Groupon. Remember when the pricing first came out? We're like, who is going to pay this much money for Hascon? And apparently the answer is not a lot of people. You cannot bamboozle Magic players for all of their money. They will resist.
Yeah, not enough players. A couple thoughts here is, and I might be wrong here, So if the comment section, can talk about this, that'd be great. But I can't remember a ComicCon or these very large cons ever showing up on Groupon like this. Maybe they have, and if they have, I apologize. And it's also a telling sign that they don't even discount like exclusives either. Like the San Diego Comic-Con Planeswalker pack is pretty much still in stock, and they still don't discount them, but they'll turn around and discount the Hascon tickets. So you can tell that this is nowhere near the level of other large cons in the country, and it's starting to show. And this is something that we talked about very early on, that they priced it like Comic-Con, like almost like these large cons, when it's just not on that level, not even remotely on that level.
And it's targeted for children, right? Here's the key part, right? Like, as an adult, you work, you love comics or whatever, you're willing to fork over $100 or $300 or whatever to go play, right? But the majority of Hascon outside of Magic the Gathering players are children. And that means you got to drag your family of 5 over here, which is like a nuisance in itself. And you're expecting people to shell out like a couple $100s. So it just didn't seem correct. This is not hardcore, con people. This is like children who want to go play with Transformers and stuff, right? So it's just weird, and I suspect we're going to end up with just a weird Magic the Gathering convention with like little children like thrown out. So I don't know. I don't know how this is going to turn out, but now it's very interesting to see that it's shown up on Groupon. And I kind of just want to go see Hascon just to see like who's there and like what's going on now, right?
So this
I really
makes you want to go more?
It does. I just want to see everything burn.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's clearly not a good sign for how ticket sales have been going, because if things were going well, you wouldn't put your tickets on Groupon for half off. And I think it's just a really tough sell. I wish that instead of Hascon, they just did like maybe a Wizards of the Coast con. I think that would be cool. I think the biggest problem with all this is it's just so scattered, and it's really hard to sell any individual group, I think, to spend the amount that they want you to spend when just a tiny fraction of Hascon is a product you're interested in. I've never met a single person that said they're a big fan of Hasbro. Like, that's not, there's no like brand recognition that you're a Hasbro fan. You're a fan of Wizards of the Coast. You like D&D and Magic, or you're a fan of the individual brands with that are under the Hascon umbrella. So it's just a really odd idea, and the idea that they could price it like a premium con for the very first outing with all the issues of how scattered it is was just, in hindsight, obviously not very good. If they are to this point now, it's a pretty clear sign they probably should have just priced Hascon at half off to begin with and avoided all of the bad reactions when they announced the pricing on social media.
Yeah, and that's really it. And this is not me trying to say like it's a bad event, or there's not people that will enjoy this event, because obviously there's tickets selling, so some people find it worthwhile, and it could still very well be overall a decent con. But I think really just they kind of got a little too ambitious in getting into this con scene and looking at ticket prices and thinking like they can somehow match a con that's been going on for first of all a very long time, and is now blown up to, it's like a mainstream thing. Like, they have like high-end actors and selling like these huge movies coming out. So it's gotten even larger since, it first started. And there's nowhere, like, I know that I think I saw tweets that were like getting in some of these people, but personally I didn't recognize like offhand anyone that was even going. And this, again, I'm sorry if there is people that are worthwhile going. I apologize, but I can't definitively remember that like, Gal Gadot is going, or, someone who's, or, I don't know, someone else like in the Justice League or whatever. Like those type of people are not showing up to this.
Okay, just the dog pile at Hascon for a second. Here is the name of the event on Groupon, and you tell me if this makes any sense to you. Hasbro's Hascon Family Event 2017, with a performance by Flowrider.
Yeah, I don't.
When you think family fun time, you're the first person you think of is Flowrider. Like,
Yeah.
what is this, right? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Now, this is a legitimate question. I'm not trying to be, facetious or anything. This is geared towards like under 13 children.
It has to be, right? Because it's
right,
like
because yeah,
it's like Transformers, My Little Pony, stuff
and
like that.
I don't know
right?
if we talked about this before, but I just wanted to get the record straight. So this is just for like 10 and like under, because, and the reason I say that is because I teach a summer class for teenagers, and I've been doing this for a few years now, and like teenagers between like 13, 14, and all the way up to like 17. So that was like, or 18. That's kind of like the age range, are not interested in stuff like this. Like I don't see them coming in. And I've done this for a few years. Is no way indicative of what's going on in the country. So keep that in mind. But I've never heard the conversation of like, the new Transformers like product is coming out. They come in, they talk about like YouTubers, League of Legends, and like stuff like that, Minecraft and stuff like that. Like Minecraft, and I know there's a Minecraft con, is almost as large, like almost to that level of like a ComicCon. Like it's got such a large following that Hascon, even though there's a large umbrella of different things like Transformers, you have Magic, you have whatever, it's nowhere close to even the same following as like something like Minecraft.
The other thing is they obviously invested a lot in this. When you think that they made a Magic set specifically to try to get Magic players to go to this event in Iconic Masters, that's a lot of work and a lot of production and man hours to make an entire Magic set specifically so you could have this pre-release. So it's got to be a little disappointing from Wizards' perspective in specific to see that ticket sales obviously aren't going well, because I mean, Iconic Masters was supposed to be a huge draw, and apparently that's not enough to get Magic players to go to My Little Pony Transformer Play-Doh Con. Like, is that where we're at? I don't know.
Well, here's the good news.
It is kind of where we're at, though.
Here's the good news. We're 3 weeks out. We haven't had a leak yet. We still don't know the cards
that is good news.
from Iconic Masters. I think we all would have said that it must have leaked before. So 3 weeks out, we're still good. Here's my question to you East Coasters. Does having the tickets at half off entice you more to go to Hascon? Or are any of you going to Hascon? Or are you like, red flag, no one's going here, better not go? Like, it scares you away.
You know what lost me, legitimately? It would have definitely been more of an incentive at half off. But you know what lost me is I think I can't get behind, and again, for those of you out there that like them, that's fine. But for me, I would have liked Magic-specific promos. I just cannot get, like, I like the Sword of D&D, and it is cool and all that, and the Transformer, whatever, but I can't use those. Like, I can't, at the end of the day, go back and, like, throw a cool promo or whatever into a deck and use them. And I think that's kind of where it lost me, because the only interest I would have had is for Magic. So you can't expect me to pay even half off for a ticket. And is the Iconic Masters draft even included in that? I don't even think so, right?
No, they didn't discount any of the add-ons.
Right. So now I have to pay, what, $30? $35?
Yeah, I don't remember.
I'm getting my numbers mixed up. Yeah, I apologize. I don't have the numbers offhand. But, yeah, to play one draft. And it's not enough for me. I'm sorry.
I think it actually makes me less likely to go. I think if I was really sold on it, the ticket prices were high, but that wouldn't have been a barrier for me in specific if I thought it was something I really wanted to do. But seeing the ticket decrease definitely makes me look around and think, oh, there's probably not going to be that many Magic players there that I want to meet and hang out with. So it actually makes me less likely to want to go to Hascon.
Yeah, I mean, there's some benefits of having the convention be small. Like, if you go to PAX today, it's like lineup convention. You can't get anything done, right? You need to line up for hours to accomplish anything. Whereas when you went to PAX when it was brand new, you could just show up at the door, buy a ticket, come in, play all the games you want to play, and then go home. So if it's sparsely populated, you can actually go do the Transformers thing. And
But that assumes I want to do the Transformers thing, even if there's no line.
you can actually play Magic the Gathering or whatever. I don't know, but it's not all downside, right? It may flop,
it's not.
but you could go there and have a good time still.
Well, again, and flop is relative, and this was kind of, I was actually going to bring that point, Richard, and I'm glad you brought it up. Even if it's a flop in the overall sense of the word, is it really for them, though? Like, I was going to ask you guys, does this really need to be super successful for it to be successful for them? Again, like you just said, Richard, it's a smaller con, even though it's overpriced. Like, every ticket that they were selling at that price, like, did they need to really sell that many tickets for it to be successful for them?
I guess it depends how much money they put into it, right?
Yeah, I guess it can't be that much. I mean, I don't know how high-end Flow Rider is these days, and I'm not even trying to be like funny, but I really don't know. But did they really spend that much?
We're just dogpiling at everyone today.
No, I'm serious though. I don't know.
Get it.
So yeah.
He came just for the free continental breakfast. That's his going rate.
Do you even need to buy the promo cards?
I hope it's awesome.
That's a legitimate question, actually.
What do you mean? You don't need to buy them.
No. I mean, do you have to buy them in order to own them?
Yes.
Like, do they give you those?
No.
Do they give those to you?
No,
unless you have to buy the Magic VIP package, and then they're included. Otherwise, you have to buy
promos.
them.
Yeah, they're not like in your goodie bag or something when you show up. You have to pay for them.
The other
it's
thing,
even more of a no now.
The other thing is we have Magic Cons 40-some weekends a year at GPs. Like, if you want to just go hang out with Magic players and draft and, like, do that and not have to deal with the people that are there for Play-Doh and My Little Pony and, like, the crowd that probably isn't that interested in Magic, we already have that constantly. So it's really hard for me to differentiate what a Magic player gets from Hascon that they wouldn't necessarily get going to a big GP.
So here's the final question then. Do you think it would have been more successful if it was a Magic the Gathering con and then they just kind of had all the other things included? Like, they have a big showing of their Magic Digital next. You can go play the new set. You actually have promos, the VIP thing. Like, would it have been more successful to market it as Magic the Gathering con? Because it's not like there's a pretty large following now. It probably has to at least match the following of HasbroCon or whatever this is. Like, I think it honestly would have been more successful to have it Magic the Gathering first and then, like, had all that other stuff included. But the main attraction is Magic the Gathering, and here's these cool promos, and come draft, like, iconic masters, and blah, blah, blah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it'll be more attractive to us because we're Magic players, but I don't think we're what they're after. I think they want all of the Transformers fans and all the My Little Pony fans. Like, those are the people they want to reach, because today, if you're a Transformers fan, you have nowhere to congregate, really, right? As a Magic player, like Seth said, you have Pro Tours, Grand Prix, F&M, whatever. So I don't think we're the target. I think we're kind of like the side bonus or whatever.
Really?
And we like it and we follow that news.
No. Yeah.
They don't care about us, right? They have ways to reach us.
That's a good point though. So you really, like, out of the three that you just mentioned, you believe Magic is, like, third in that list. My Little Pony, Transformers, and Magic. Like, Magic shouldn't have ever been the main attraction. Like, even if you still had My Little Pony and Transformers at this Magic the Gathering con, because it's still Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro or whatever, you don't think it's still, like, third in that list?
Yeah, I think they could have made a con with just My Little Pony, Transformers, and Nerf.
Really? Wow.
Right?
I think that's...
Well, why do they need us?
Maybe. I guess, yeah.
I think that's a really good point. I think we're coming at this from a Magic player perspective, obviously, and we kind of have this very kind of self-centered view of Hascon, why we're looking at this as, what is this for me as a Magic player? And the answer is, like, there's some stuff, but it's not primarily for us. But I think that's a really good point, that maybe we're treating this as a failed Magic Con when actually it's a maybe successful. We don't really know, but like it really is supposed to be a Hasbro con that's going to get in all those other brands, and we're just kind of the side note. Like they can throw a Iconic Masters pre-release, and that's going to bring in some number of people, and they're perfectly fine with that. And if you want to go to Magic Con, you go to GP Vegas or something along those lines.
Okay. Yeah, because, I mean, and I was trying to draw the parallel because, 10 years ago or whatever, it might even be longer, Comic-Con, people could literally, just, like Richard said, you could go up, you don't have to worry about getting a ticket, you go in, whatever. But it's like grown past comics that even if you're still a hardcore comic, like it's almost like a cultural thing now that it encompasses and it's an umbrella of all that culture. And that's like kind of what I was getting at is that if it was just kind of like this culture of magic and it encompassed the other stuff, maybe it would have been more successful. But I guess not. I guess it's just one one little part of that. Maybe that's why we're kind of biased towards it.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what we kind of talked about before. There isn't a Hasbro culture. Like, Comic-Con has a culture, Gen Con has a culture. Hasbro doesn't really have that. It's just like a group of products that are sort of very loosely related, so you don't have that kind of culture that draws people in and the kind of like foundational thing that drives the con forward. So my last question is, do you think this is it? Do you think there will be a Hascon 2? Or will this just be a one-off and Wizards or Hasbro decides that it's not worth it to do anymore?
I don't know. Yeah, that's a great question.
It depends on how successful it is. I don't know.
Because if Richard is right, and a lot of people really are going for Transformers and My Little Pony and Nerf or whatever, then they probably will. In terms of Magic being its own success there, then if it's not that big of a deal, then they probably will continue to do it.
Yeah, and they should have just called it like Toy Con or something.
Yeah.
Like, I know they really want to push the Hasbro brand, but I guarantee you, like 99% of people can't list like one Hasbro IP. Like, you may know of Transformers, but did you know Transformers is owned by Hasbro? Like, no, right? Like, no one knows this, right? So
we brought it up
tough.
like weeks ago. I didn't even like Lego isn't even Lego is its own thing. I even thought like Lego was going to be there. Like Lego has its own thing. I think a con or something like that. It's crazy. You're right. I didn't even know like Nerf was like Hasbro. No idea. All right. Last bit before we get to some fish mail. So a lot of market movement. Good time to take a vacation, right, Seth? And here we are. It's almost, I think I cited this every year that we've done the podcast. We've talked about the reserve list and market movement. So for us, it's been a yearly thing. And I think it goes back even a few years before that. So a lot of movement in the reserve list. Tons of different cards. A lot of people saying, oh, these are like bad cards. And it's just random speculators. And it's just buyouts. And it's people, speculators selling to speculators, and just kind of here we go again with all this narrative every time, stuff like this happens, right? Last year it was like crazy stuff with reserve lists, people buying out random stuff, Martin Shkreli, and that whole thing, if you remember that. Yeah, it's been a lot. Time flies.
About Martin Shkreli.
Time flies, right? Yeah. Probably it'll be a little bit harder to buy cards now, but that's a discussion for another day. But so what do you think? I mean, we've had this discussion, and we all have our view on the reserve list, and it's kind of evolved for me, and it kind of is what it is for me at this point. And for me, I guess the bottom line is that I'm starting to treat the reserve list as its own entity, much like Commander. But even more so, like the reserve list is starting to become, and Richard has drove this point home many times. And so I just want to reiterate it here that it's like not even Magic cards anymore. This is like akin to just collectible items similar to old comic books and just stuff that people want to collect and own for various reasons. And it's starting not to matter about which card gets bought and why. So I wanted you two to weigh in on this.
Yeah, I think there's a disproportional amount of interest in this topic that affects basically no one. Like, yeah, okay, every day some stuff happens with reserve list pricing. But who does it really affect? Right? For most players, unless you're playing Legacy or Vintage, the actual staple cards, the rest of the cards don't matter. If you are a casual player, most of these cards are terrible. You don't want them. So the only people it affects are collectors or people that are speculating on these cards themselves. And I suspect, 99.9% of the Magic population doesn't have anything to do with this, but they see prices go up and they grab their pitchforks and everyone starts yelling at each other. And I don't know why, because it doesn't even matter, right? Like, let the collectors battle with themselves, or let the speculators battle with themselves. It doesn't matter most of the time. These cards just, they're not really Magic cards, like I said, right? Like, you don't buy them to play with them, right? The only non-speculative reason to own these cards is you want to collect them to complete your set. Like, a very valid reason is, I played with Legends growing up. I want a complete set of Legends for my collection, right? So stuff like that. And when you're doing that, how playable the card is, like, doesn't matter whatsoever. So it doesn't matter that this card is a lightning bolt or whatever. You just need one of them, and you're gonna pay whatever it's worth for you, to own it. And it's gonna vary from person to person, right? Like, how are your childhood memories? How important is a set of Legends? How much money do you make today? And the prices will just be all over the place. So I don't know. I don't care too much about this. It's something that collectors need to deal with, and it's not affecting me as a Magic player. So people can do whatever they want with the reserve list cards.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. That really doesn't impact people's ability to play any format. I guess maybe old school or 93, 94, or whatever you want to call it. But that's a group of players who is pretty enfranchised and has a lot of money. Like, that's a format that impacts a very select group of players that probably doesn't really care too much about card prices. They're in a position where that doesn't really matter too much to them. I guess my question is whether this is sustainable and the cost of these cards is just too low. It's definitely true that the supply of these cards is minuscule compared to the player base we have today. So are the cards from Legends, Arabian Nights, Antiquities just underpriced and they're undervalued assets? Or is this a bubble where not collectors, but speculators think that they're underpriced and that they can get the price up and then no one's gonna actually buy these cards and the bubble is gonna burst at some point? So that's what I'm mostly trying to figure out.
I think it's more so that this is not, like, there are people investing in this thinking that, and I think this is what's really happening is, we can sit here and argue reasonings or whatever. It doesn't honestly matter what the reasoning is for people buying these cards, similarly to what Richard said, and it doesn't affect a lot of people, but the people that it does affect and the people that are affecting it, the percentage of those players doesn't need to be that high because, like you said, Seth, I mean, there's just not a lot of these cards in existence. I have a couple of numbers, and I believe you've used these numbers before in previous articles over the years. An alpha rare, there's, you look at a U1 from Antiquities, there's roughly 31,000 U1 Antiquities cards that have been printed. And that's not even how many are left in existence. There's just not a lot of these cards. And, when you see a lot of these cards, even if they're bad, it doesn't even matter if they're good or bad. Like, hovering around 75 cents, $1, what have you. And those same cards can be sold at like $5 or $6. Yeah, that doesn't seem like a huge win on paper, but percentage-wise, that's still a pretty big win. And I'm leaning towards not a bubble because as we've talked about this over the couple of years and even before that, you still look back on a few of these cards. What comes to mind are a few cards before, like King Suleiman or City in a Bottle. I mean, largely those cards have not declined very much in a year or a year and a half's time. And yeah, that because it could be because they're more playable in that, old school 93, 94 format. But again, there's just not a lot of them that re-enter the market once they're gone. And I think, that just has to kind of tap in a little bit psychologically to players that honestly, it doesn't matter until they're gone, right? Like you like knowing the fact that they're kind of there and they're like 75 cents and $1 for a long time. And then you kind of forget about it. But other people are not forgetting about these cards, and they just realize that every time you keep buying up these cards, the price increases, sometimes drastically, sometimes they will, while they, show up huge spiking percentages on one card. And even if they come back down, they really never go back to the price they were. And I don't see that as a bubble because they continues to sustain years after. I mean, we're talking about, cards like Shahrazad, or however you pronounce it, or, King Suleiman or City in a Bottle, where they were, pretty inexpensive one year, and then they continue to be expensive going forward.
Yeah.
And that's just like the lower tier cards, like cards that not a lot of people really care about. Dual lands even. I mean, talk about the more playable cards. They continue to increase. I mean, you can look at these price graphs. Even for the very playable cards, they increase slowly but surely every single year. So this is honestly, at the end of the day, I mean, it is kind of taking advantage of a promise that is not going away that was made like 20 years ago. And for people that want to own these cards, every single year that they don't continue to own these cards, well, they'll have to pay a premium sooner or later.
Yeah, just to echo that, I don't think this is a bubble. Like, the way I look at it, is Lifeblood a $100 card? Most likely not. But is it a $1 card? If you are sitting on a set of legends and you're missing a Lifeblood, how much are you willing to pay to get that last Lifeblood? And my wager is a lot more than $1. Probably not 100, but would you pay 5? Would you pay 10? Probably. Right? When you're spending hundreds or thousands of dollars putting together a complete set, I think you're willing to spend, $10 for this last, junk card. So I think the floor for these cards is going to be much higher. Now, the question is, if you have a Lifeblood, how easy is it for you to sell at like $10 or $20? And it may be worth $20, but you need to find that, one of those 5 people in the world looking for a Lifeblood to finish their legend set. And I think that is the hard part, right? You can steal Mona Lisa. You can go steal the painting. But how many people are you going to get to buy that? Like the 3 museums in the world that can afford it, and that's it, right? You may not be able to offload it. So,
that's a very good point.
Unless you're actually seeking a Lifeblood, you can get one, but you might not be able to sell it because you'll never find the person who actually wants it. So, I don't know, it's like a collectible, so it's really random, right? Like low supply, low demand as well, so prices are like all over the place. So, yep. I think prices will keep going up, but I don't think you would buy like stacks of Lifeblood at $10 and expect to sell them at 15 or 20 or something at any decent clip. Like, I don't think you can sell them that fast. You'll sell like one a month or something, right?
Yeah. And that's just, again, weighing the risk versus reward there. If that's what some people are committed to do, then that's fine. There's certainly many other avenues in the market that are certainly viable and worthwhile and lucrative. But again, and just I don't want to go too long, and I want time for the fish mail. But just last point here, even going further to what Richard said too, and this again, not mattering about the reason why people buy these. I mean, these, to some folks, and again, this number probably doesn't even have to be too large in the overall percentage of Magic players. This is what defines Magic the Gathering for them. Right? Like, Richard, I mean, you've played with some of these cards. While you might not pay $100 for a Lifeblood, I mean, you do look at these cards, and these are the exact cards that drew you into Magic the Gathering in the first place. And for some people, that's worthwhile for them to buy some of these cards so they own them. But when they never had a chance before, they just kind of forgot, or they just are now seeing these cards again, or whatever. I mean, some of these cards, I mean, if you ask me 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, hey, do you know that card Lifeblood? Probably couldn't even have told you what it does, what it did. But for some people, these are the cards that have defined Magic the Gathering for them. And there's a price for that. There is a price tag on that no other Magic card can reliably do.
So I guess the question is, I've been, as we've been talking, just looking at the supply that's actually available of some of these cards, and it's basically none. Like, if you can find any near mint copies, there might be 2, there might be 5, maybe at the most 10, and that's even counting eBay listings, TCG Player, the big vendors. So is the right thing for people to do just go buy all of those cards? Like, is that what they should be doing?
Because how are you going to
if
sell
you
them?
want them, right? Just because, I mean, it looks like a good idea on paper, but what Richard definitely talked about is a real thing. You know, you can certainly buy a cheap copy of like Singing Tree or something like that. But it will take you some time to find someone willing to pay for a Singing Tree. And that's even at near mint. It would take probably considerably longer for a slightly played copy and, you know, so on and so forth. So, while it does look good on paper, we do kind of fall back, like we do, no matter what we talk about, we do definitely get to this conclusion of, and we've said it here on the podcast, if you want these cards every year or all the time that you wait to continue not to own these cards, sooner or later you are going to pay a premium. And this is just, you know, cards that you may think are bad or what have you, but that goes basically to all the reserve list and additionally even the good cards. So, and those continue to increase. So again, that always comes, we always come back to that conclusion.
I guess the last thing I would say on the topic is just don't believe the prices, because there's so few out there that what the price you see, even on Goldfish or TCG Player, a lot of these places, they aren't the price that people are actually paying for cards. So if you want to get a sense of what the cards are actually worth, and maybe even some sense of how quickly they move, check things like eBay completed listings, just because the normal pricing systems that work so well with newer cards where there's hundreds of copies being sold each day, it doesn't work the same when you have cards that are just so rare. It really throws the prices out of whack. So be aware of that. If you are interested in buying these cards, do a little bit more research than you would do if you were buying a Gideon or a Chandra or some new card where the price is pretty set.
Yeah, check buy lists too. That's actually a really good indication that these are kind of co-signed or backed by vendors, especially the large vendors. And it certainly, you know, will kind of solidify that, you know, hey, maybe this card there is demand for this card, and this card's price will stick a little bit.
Yeah, that's guaranteed demand, right? Because you can just send it to the vendor, and they'll give you money right then and there, right? So buy lists are a good indicator because that's actual demand that's there right now.
All right. That all being said, let's wrap things up with fish mail.
All right. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air. So, first question from Bob Boberson III. Anyone break down and get the SDCC promos?
So, Richard, we did the podcast, and then they went up after we did the podcast. So they were like super late this year.
Mm-hmm.
They went up super late this year, and I believe I checked yesterday, but I believe they're still available. And I did not get one.
Yep,
I didn't either.
Weaned myself off the promo train. The only reason I've been buying them is because like I've always had them. I'm like, yeah, I gotta finish the set, but I'm like, no more, forget it. I don't need these cards. What is the point? They're not that good this year, and the prices increased, so I decided not to get them. And apparently, you can still get them. So,
yeah, there's
anyone
a lot
gonna
of
back out now?
around.
Anyone gonna reverse course and go buy one?
I don't think so. I mean, Seth, you did not get one, right?
No, I didn't. I just thought they were too expensive and figured if I wanted one, I could probably pick one up on eBay for about what retail was at some point in the not too distant future.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it and, you know, they charge you tax for some weird reason. And then some people got the shipping promo to work and some people didn't. So it ended up being like pretty much like $200, all said and done. And I just don't think it was worth it. And if you wanted like specific cards, I'd rather just buy the Chandra at like $40 and the poster at $30 than spend the $200 and get the rest of the promos that I'm never going to do anything with. I mean, I would probably wouldn't have even played any of them either. But, Chandra's fine to have. I mean, it is a very good card. The poster's pretty cool from what I've heard. Maybe the Nicole Boas, but other than that, there's no real reason to have spent the 200. And again, for those of you that wanted to, I think it's still a decent price, but it was basically priced the aftermarket price for these this time. So I guess it wasn't too terrible.
Yeah, it just goes to show you can only charge through the roof if they're good cards. Like, Magic players apparently don't care about promos unless they're like promos of tier 1 staples. And there need to be a lot of them, right? If you're going to bundle 5 cards together, a lot of them need to be staples.
Right.
So it's quite interesting.
It was at Liliana's Death Majesty that got me, Richard. And then Jace unravel her secrets again. I was like, nah, I'm okay this time.
I mean, if like 3 were playable, might swing me, but it's a tough sell.
Wait, what if it was Liliana the Last Hope again instead of Death's Majesty? Would you have gone for it?
Maybe. I'd be a lot more enticed because I can actually use that card. And it goes in my deck, and there's a justification besides, buying them and putting them in my binder and never seeing them ever again. Like, that's pretty much what happens to most of them, right?
I think if it was Last Hope, I would have done it. Like, Last Hope, Chandra, the Nicole Boas, and even like the Nissan, like, it would have been a lot better, I think.
Yeah. All right, next question. Asim Bureaucrat. I'm with you on the no fancy border masterpieces. How about black and white cards? Maybe colored mana symbols.
Ooh, that would be cool.
I like it. Yeah.
I like that idea, yeah.
Wait,
Very
you like
cool.
it? I thought you didn't like the black on black stuff.
I don't like the black on black, but I think if it was black on
and white.
Really black and white, I think it would look cool. The black on black ones, I wasn't a huge fan of, but I think black on white could be pretty cool.
Black and white could be cool, but not for Dominaria. Dominaria has to have old frames, exactly like they were. Don't get fancy. Exactly the old frames with the old tap symbols and everything.
Right down to the rounded alpha borders.
Yep.
Next question, Thunder FGC. Hey guys, what land cycles do you think Wizards should revisit / complete when Ixalan Dominaria 2019 are released?
Well, they're revisiting the Buddy lands. I think it's time for the filter lands. It's been a long time since the filter lands were printed.
Yeah, I think we are about due for filter lands. I'm trying to think if there's any old land cycle that's really associated with Dominaria, and I can't really think of one.
They're all really bad.
Yeah. But I think we'll get the Buddy lands, and I'm hopeful that we get the Innistrad enemy color ones as well. So, and then I don't know about Dominaria.
Well, you know what land cycle I associate with Dominaria? Dual lands.
Yeah.
Not getting those.
Give us the good old masks like depletion counter, like Peat Bog and Hickory Woodlot.
Yeah, I was thinking some kind of counter-based land we haven't seen in a while, so that might be a thing.
That would be sweet.
Next question, nlewin42. Assuming the Ixalan leaks are legit, do you think it's better to get check lands now or after release?
In paper, I don't think it really matters. They've been reprinted so many times.
Yeah, they're like, what, max like $2?
Yeah.
I mean, they're pretty much, there's more on the way, so, yeah. I don't think even, like, buying now, you might save yourself, like, 75 cents to $1. I mean, it's not hugely...
I don't
think
a
huge savings.
Yeah, I don't think they'll go down in price being reprinted. I think the demand from being in standard, if anything, it'll go up a little, but I don't expect them to be worth enough that it's a big deal to pick them up now. I don't think they're going to spike in price really either. On Moto, I picked up a bunch on Magic Online, and because they were like 10 cents on Magic Online, and even with all the supply, the standard legal rare lands are going to be more than that. So on Moto, I am a fan of picking them up now, but in paper, I don't really think it matters.
Next question from Thoughtseize on 1. What do you guys think of Chandra, Torture Defiance? Will her price tag stay high? Will she see modern play?
Ooh, probably, and yeah, probably. I think it is definitely good enough for modern. It's like fringe almost already, right?
Yeah, she's playing Fringe decks.
Yeah, I think her price will go down though. She sees Fringe play, but she's not like arguably the best 4-drop or anything like that, and she battles with herself a lot of the times, the other Chandras. So she won't go to 0, but I think it'll go down over time because she doesn't see that much play in Modern, and I think a lot of the price is price memory from, being hyped as the next Mime Sculptor and whatever, and having pre-sale prices through the roof. So it'll be interesting to see where she ends up. But I personally don't play Chandra, but I know a lot of people do like her in Jund, but it's not like clear cut. There's a lot of debate over it.
And remember, Chandra doesn't rotate this rotation. So she's in Standard for another year. So even if she probably does go down eventually, I don't think she's going to crash while she's in Standard because she is very good in Standard.
Yep.
Next question. Goku023 just saw the MTG Goldfish logo on the stream of Grand Prix Denver when showing deck lists. Did Goldfish get a deal with the Grand Prix circuit? So we've been actually helping Channel Fireball with their coverage since last year, I believe. We've done quite a few GPs, so they've been using our deck list tools and things like that. So you should be seeing scoops hidden on stream sometimes in the deck techs. Next question. Martyrdom. Did Seth beat Marble Madness this vacation?
I didn't even play any Marble Madness this vacation, but I did finally beat it, just not on vacation.
What did you do on your vacation? It's goldfishing time.
So
and don't say play Magic the Gathering.
Well, I did 5-0 a league with the Vengevine deck, but no, I went down and visited a family down in Pennsylvania, and I had a family reunion thing the first weekend I was off, and then did some random stuff in between, car shopping, house shopping, things like that.
Nice.
All right, next question from Kifka. Feature request, would it be possible to add an option for tracking foil prices under movers and shakers? Yes, a lot of people have been asking for foil prices, so that's something we'll be adding to movers and shakers soon. Quilted Train, looking to get a new tattoo this year, but can't decide a D20 or a Planeswalker symbol. Please weigh in.
Ooh.
That's a tough one.
It is a tough one. I think D20 because it's a little more universal. Like, people might not even know what a Planeswalker, unless you want questions like what is that? I think the D20 is a little more recognizable. But again,
it depends
if you
how
want
much
it to be a
you
conversation piece.
Yeah, how much you like D&D, because this serves as something for both. If you want to look like a nerd, D20. But Planeswalker symbol, even if you don't know what Planeswalkers or Magic is, it looks like a cool symbol. So it's more, I guess, subtle. Whereas pretty much everyone knows what a D20 is, and they'll ask you about Dungeons & Dragons, I think. I associate D20 more with Dungeons & Dragons than Magic the Gathering. So I think it'll start the conversation for D&D. Next question from Cardboard Mage. Favorite beers?
I'm not a beer drinker, actually. I don't like beer.
What?
Yeah?
I haven't drank beer in a very long time, but it's a seasonal beer that I don't know if it's everywhere, but certainly in New York, and I've had it a few times. Friend turned me on a very long time. I mean, I haven't drank in a very long time, but it's called Nugget Nectar, and it's an IPA. That's all I can recommend. It was very, very good.
So for common beers like Stella or Blue Moon, for crafty beers, if you're in Pacific Northwest, Manny's Pale Ale is my favorite. Arrogant Bastard's pretty good, but I don't know how nationally available these beers are. And Bud Light,
Likewise,
if you go watch football, pay like $15 for your Bud Light. Hey, at least they give you like a special bottle thing. Have you ever had like beer at a football game? It comes in like this weird aluminum bottle.
I have, yeah. It's really weird.
And then it's like Super Bowl, whatever. It's like all special. So you're like, yeah, I feel good for paying like $15 for this beer.
At least I get this, right?
Next question. Nazir Smith. I turned 21 today I was wondering what your favorite adult beverages were.
All right, there you go.
So wait,
Have at it.
non-beer, your favorite adult beverage. So you
Oh.
guys don't drink. Is there another adult beverage you like?
I do like wine. I think out of all the adult beverages, probably wine.
Yeah, I guess that'll have to do.
My go-to adult beverage is beer. I drink wine, but I know nothing about wine. It's like, is this $100 glass? Is this a $5 glass? I can't tell.
Yeah, probably stick to beer too. It's yeah, probably stick to beer.
Beer, root beer floats, milkshakes. At Run Thunder Snow, what is the cheapest a mythic rare has been while it's in standard? For Unesh is less than $1. Did Invocations do this?
Oh,
What is the bulk mythic rare price?
no, I definitely I have some knowledge on this one. There's definitely been times where mythics have been under $1 without invocations and masterpieces. I know full well. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think the worst of all time. I'm trying to remember. Archangel's Light might be one of them, and also like the third printing
Oh,
of
that was so bad. Yeah.
was it Time? The card that was like $40, and now it's
time reversal?
Yes, Time Reversal was also super cheap when they kept reprinting it, and it was horrible. So it's fairly rare that mythics are under $1, but there's definitely been some that are like 60 cents, 70 cents, so in that range.
Underworld Soberest.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure like pretty legit cards are bulk as well. You don't have to go to Archangel's Light to get bulk prices.
Oh, it was brutal.
Do you still have your Underworld services, by the way?
I do. You always have to remind yourself, you know?
Next question from Antioch. Every time I fly with my magic cards, my bag gets pulled by TSA. Any tips?
Oh.
I've heard this a lot, but I've never
Yeah,
experienced it
I've heard
myself.
that too.
Apparently, your
actually-
deck looks like a bomb.
Actually, now this could just be I got lucky, but both times I went on the plane just recently, my book bag did not get checked.
Did you have cards
Yeah,
in there?
I had a lot of cards in there. Yeah, I had a lot.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of pros talk about this, that it apparently is just like part of them traveling to events, is they kind of expect it to happen, and I don't know if there's anything you can do to minimize the odds of it happening.
No. Now the two airlines were JetBlue and American Airlines, respectively. So it could just be the airline. I don't know. But yeah, going to and coming back, I did not get checked.
Wait, but TSA is not airline dependent, right? Because you go through the same TSA.
No, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's not. But
Yeah, my
but,
only
no. Well, sort of, because I got to the gate and on the way back on American Airlines, they didn't check my bag, but they checked my like I had a gym bag as well as my backpack, and they checked it at the gate. So it's actually kind of weird. And I had cards in there too.
Interesting.
So yeah, it was kind of weird.
My only tip would be treat it like your toiletries. Just like pull them out, put them in the bin separately. So when they scan it, they're like, okay, it's just like a big bag of cards, and they don't have to like rummage through your backpack and pull everything out and take a look. But I think it's a very common problem because I always see people complaining about it on Twitter.
Yeah, they didn't check the bag like with cards in it, and they also didn't check the bag with like $1,000 worth of computer hardware in it. So
what do you?
It's
what
really
you, like,
random.
smuggling here. Like computer hardware, cards,
Okay, yeah.
gym
Well,
bag.
okay. Really quickly, goldfishing. I don't want to take it too long, but there's nowhere to like buy actual like computer parts except for like online down here in Florida. And when I was up in New York, there's Micro Centers. So I went to Micro Center and I got like $700 worth of computer parts because that's like what I do sometimes. And they were all in their boxes, and I barely fit them in my gym bag, and they didn't check them. So who knows? There was like a video card in there. There was a water coolant system. So like it was like almost very sketchy looking, but they didn't check it at all. So I don't know. Maybe they're like, oh, he's getting like a video card. That's cool.
Chaz was like
Maybe
playing
they know the
Overwatch
brands.
on the plane with his like PC parts
Yeah,
scattered
I had
on
a
the
1080.
CC side
Yeah,
of him.
it was so weird. It was so weird.
Last question from Tomaz. This one's for Richard. You mentioned you play Abzin in Modern. What's your current build? Can we see a deck list? Are you on Flayers, Bobs, Hierarchs? So no hierarchs. I like Bobs. Gideon's. Gideon's is the secret sauce. I play 2 Gideon ally Zendikar. And my meta is all mid-rangey, so I don't like flares because they don't do anything against Death Shadow, but against combo decks and Tron and stuff, flares are awesome because they let you dig for your hate cards. But I'm totally on the Gideon plan. Gideon is the best card in Absent. Multi-format all-star, ally of Zendikar.
That tech.
So good. You just make 2/2s
Richard
all day.
with always the cool tech. What was the other? Gatekeeper. I'll never forget the Gatekeeper of Malakir tech.
So good.
Yes, so good.
When
It's
you,
actually
when you
legal
find that
modern. Why
Boggles
aren't you
player,
playing it?
when you find that Boggles player, it is so sweet.
Richard, it's modern playable too. What are you doing?
It is. I've played in modern sometimes.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay.
It's
okay.
hard on the mana base though. Triple black is.
Oh yeah,
it's not easy.
A little
in
tough.
modern.
Yeah, it's a little more tough. Yeah. All right. I think that's it, right, Richard?
Yep, that's all our fish mail. Thank you everyone for sending them in.
Awesome. All right, gentlemen. We are about that time. So great cast. Great to have you back, Seth. Looking forward to all the content, and everyone else. We will see you next time. This is the MTG Goldfish crew signing out.